Now I'm gonna go into a bit more detail here than I usually do, but I'm not gonna go into how it ends or what actually happens, just in case you're unfamiliar with the story. But I feel like the setup here needs a bit more explanation than most movies. But anyway, this is based on the true story of Ford deciding to take on Ferrari in Le Mans in the 60s. Ford, which at the time didn't even have a racing division at all. Meanwhile, Ferrari had won the race every year for quite a few years in a row. So you'd think this might be sort of an underdog story, where Ford is the underdog. However, that's not really the case, because they're a massive company with virtually limitless resources. And they're essentially sort of a bully in this scenario, and yet we're asked to be on their side. Which is a very interesting setup for a movie if you really look at it. Now the clever thing they do though is present us to the characters of Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles, who are the people that are supposed to build the car and actually race it. They're the ones doing all the hard work, they're the ones who are actually gonna get that victory. But of course corporate is busy throwing wrenches into the works, making their task that much more difficult. So what we got here is essentially two rebels doing their best to achieve their goal. And the movie sort of makes the corporate heads of Ford the sort of villains here, instead of Enzo Ferrari. So the movie could actually be called Ford v Shelby or something. Because even though they are basically working together, they're also very much at odds with each other. And in certain regions the movie is actually called Le Mans 66, which in hindsight makes a lot of sense. But that internal conflict and dynamic is really what's at the heart of the movie. That's actually where all the tension and drama comes from. And the rivalry between Ford and Ferrari is actually kinda secondary here. But anyway, I was actually fairly familiar with this story from before. I knew where it would go. But there was a lot of stuff I didn't know, and I'm pretty sure they made up a lot of stuff too, just for some drama. But story-wise, there weren't really any surprises here, for me at least. But it is a really good story, and the screenplay was very well handled too. I also have to mention that the filmmaking here is very solid indeed. James Mangold, who recently made Logan, still knows how to do it. Although my personal favorites of his are probably Walk the Line and 3:10 to Yuma. But after seeing this, I would say this one is probably up there too. So yeah, he did a great job with this one, but the star of the show, for me at least, was absolutely Christian Bale as Ken Miles. Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby was really good too, although his character was just a lot less interesting. And Christian Bale just basically stole the show here and blew me away once again. And I don't really understand how he does it, but time and time again he just manages to impress me. He's just a joy to watch, and this character in particular was just so funny too. In fact, both the leads are really funny, although Damon Shelby is a lot drier. And Bale's Ken Miles is a lot more snarky and sarcastic and fun. But they do play off of each other so well that when they're both on screen it's basically magic. And that's really what elevated this whole movie for me personally. I mean, the filmmaking is really good, the story is great too. But what really makes this as good as it is the main cast. And yeah, as a whole I did enjoy this a lot. Really good stuff all around. However, in the interest of fairness, I did have a few minor issues with it too. First of all, the beginning felt a bit awkward to me, maybe the first 30 minutes. It just didn't really flow that well, but once it got going and they started building the car, it was just great from start to finish. I loved it. And another thing that's more of a nitpick, but it did annoy me a tiny bit, was some of the CGI. Now here's the thing, I don't mind CGI at all. As long as it's done so well, I don't notice it. And that's especially important in more realistic movies like this. But here I could clearly tell some of it was CGI. That being said, the racing itself was well directed and really exciting to watch. And I do understand that shooting a lot of it live would be a bit unrealistic, way too dangerous. But yeah, some of the CGI was very noticeable, and that was a shame. And really not ideal, but again, it wasn't any sort of deal breaker either. It just could have been done better. But how about it? Would I recommend this? Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was pretty great. Even if you're not into cars or racing, I'd say give this one a shot. Or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.